A college degree will protect student athletes from the ills of unscrupulous sports agents. So sayeth the NCAA. That's an interesting position. So it makes you wonder what happened with the 2008 financial crisis with all of those business people that held degrees. And what happened to, I don't know, all of those people in the current administration that were convicted of various crimes, various levels of crimes, or if you look at some physicians who commit malpractice, overbilling, commit sexual assault. Did the college degree insulate people from that type of behavior? I wonder. So as it relates to sports agents, we should all know that shutting non-degree holding agents out of professional and collegiate sports is the only line of defense to protect athletes from corruption. So something interesting happened a few weeks ago. The NCAA sent a memo to agents requiring the following criteria, and I'll just give sort of the bullet points. So there were 5 requirements. Okay. First, agents must hold an MBA, I guess what's called an MBA player's certification. They need 3 consecutive years of experience, professional liability insurance, completion of an in-person exam to, take in the local NCAA office in Indianapolis. And the last one, which is the kicker, is they need to have a college degree, but more specifically a bachelor's degree. So let's unpack that for a minute. Based on opinions from media members and professional athletes, a lot of people think the NCAA was targeting a gentleman by the name of Rich Paul, who is LeBron James, kind of one of his very tight associates. They didn't come right out and target or name Rich Paul as a person that they were targeting or people like him. But a lot of people seem to think that that's what the case is. And here's a little background on Rich Paul. And bear with me because I feel like I'm losing my voice. Rich Paul is a very accomplished agent and founder of Clutch Sports Group. This is a company I think is rolled up under another major talent agency. I don't remember the name. This guy has negotiated 7, 8, maybe 9-figure deals with NBA teams, multinational corporations, has a client list of over 25 professional athletes, including guys like Anthony Davis, Draymond Green, Ben Simmons. So he's pretty big time in that respect when you have a roster of top-tier professional athletes. But remember this, there's always a tipping point. Whenever there's an intervention in business or in the legal sort of ecosystem, there's always a moment that drives people to intervene. I've been kind of reading up on this. It seems like one moment in particular where I believe it was in 2018, there was a young player come out of high school. He was on his way to Syracuse University, which is like a very, you can say it's one of the blue chip programs. And this is what basically happened. So the kid commits to Syracuse University, and then at some point he decommits, meaning he's saying, you know what, thanks, but no thanks, guys. I don't want to go to your school. And I believe what happened, he signs with Rich Paul. Rich Paul gets him an internship with New Balance. I think was valued at $1 million. He does the internship with New Balance, this shoe and athletic apparel company. And, New Balance it's clear what it is. It's kind of a quid pro quo. So what they're probably going to do is attach themselves and endorse this young man, or I'm sorry, actually the young man will endorse New Balance. He'll wear their shoes, he'll wear the athletic apparel in exchange to showcase his talent at the pro level. So moving along with that, he entered the 2019 draft. The 2019 draft is of this year. Gets drafted by the Utah Jazz, winds up with the OKC Thunder. That's his deal. I think the draft was maybe sometime in June. So in August, the NCAA announced this new rule requiring the bachelor's degree. So there was a big backlash immediately thereafter, right? Backlash from journalists, fans, other pro athletes. The backlash was so big, the NCAA effectively killed the rule. So the rule is now defunct. They're not requiring a bachelor's degree. The handwriting's on the wall. It's very clear what was happening. But before I get to that, let me give you a little context for those of you who are unaware. The NCAA is a multi-billion-dollar enterprise. Yes, they give scholarships to kids. Yes, they take kids off the street. Yes, they give them educations, assuming that the kids or young people, I'll say, take advantage of that education, right? Yes, kids or young people do develop. They get tuition, room and board, meals, healthcare, blah, blah, blah. The NCAA rakes in billions of dollars on TV revenue, merchandising, apparel. The coaches rake in $1 million contracts while they coach, in addition to getting a salary from these universities. So it's very much a business. And what often gets overlooked is the commitment of the student athlete. Look, student athletes, you're putting in 15 to 20 hours of time with athletics. So that means conditioning, practice, strength training, nursing your injuries, study hall, travel, playing games. I know this because I did it for 4 years. It's fun to watch a game, but it's not necessarily all fun and games as a student athlete, in addition to having your studies. Here's where I think the misconnection is, especially for people that backed it. The misconnection is this rule change was framed by the NCAA as a noble attempt to protect the student athletes from unscrupulous, unqualified, maybe, predatory agents, right? Now, again, this is coming from institutions that rake in, on the whole, billions of dollars off of the labor of student athletes. Sound familiar? So let's reconnect the dots here. At the least, this was a competitive maneuver by the NCAA to preserve future revenues from people like Rich Paul. That brings me to a slang expression from back in the day. And if you're familiar with African American culture or hip hop culture, this may sound familiar. That expression is called dirty macking. Dirty macking, or dirty macking, if you really want to pronounce it how people pronounce it, it's used to discredit, disrupt, obstruct, and sometimes destroy the progress of one's opposition. Dirty macking is used by those that are overmatched by an opponent, and all signs point to the NCAA dirty macking Rich Paul. I don't think the NCAA or other powers that be who are in alignment with the NCAA saw a guy like Rich Paul coming. Hence, that weak-ass move of implementing or pushing that rule requiring a bachelor's degree. It's economic warfare, and who knows, what the other implications are of pushing this rule. Some people have thrown around racism, classism, elitism, who the fuck knows. The NCAA will never cop to it. But for colleges and universities, when you have marquee players and teams performing, people buy tickets, they tune into TV broadcasts, they buy jerseys, and all of that rolls up into billions of dollars of revenue for the NCAA and the multinational corporations that they are in partnerships with. But weakening the NCAA's talent pool, as in the case of Darius Baisley, if you're a Syracuse or the NCAA, it softens and somewhat jeopardizes future revenues of individual schools. So a good example, if you take a marquee or what's called a blue chip player like a Zion Williamson or a Baker Mayfield, every year that those kind of players are actively participating with the sports is going to rake in a lot of money for those schools. And in Baisley's case, we'll never know what his impact would have been because, he didn't go to school. But you can look at comparable players and get a sense of the kind of demand and the kind of attention that these players attract for themselves and for the schools and the coaches and the NCAA as a whole. I look at this kind of at the retail level. So imagine for you, whoever's listening, imagine that you own a supermarket chain and you're in discussion to carry a product like Patron tequila. And this is a popular product and you're anxious to put that on the shelves with other product that are that's drawing customers to your stores at all of your locations. And then another competitor comes in the picture. And this competitor is another sales guy. And they say to Patron, like, look, you know what? You don't want to be on supermarket shelves. I'll get you a better deal. I'll get you more money. I'm going to put you, here's my plan. I'm going to put you in hotel chains, airlines, and I have other destinations for you where you can get a better deal and you can capitalize on your brand more in that way. And I think that's what this whole thing is, or what it was in the case of Rich Paul and the NCAA. Rich Paul effectively took a product off of the NCAA shelf. And my guess is that if you're a TV network, then you're all, you're going to back the NCAA because a younger player in the college ranks is probably, and I don't know the numbers behind this, is probably has a better opportunity to generate revenue because playing at college is a better opportunity for them to showcase themselves, to showcase their talent, versus the NBA, where everybody who goes to the NBA after a year is not necessarily going to be able to showcase their talent and be an impact player. But the other thing we can't forget is that coaches have contracts with schools and shoe and apparel companies. Why can't a player? We'll come back to that. I mean, this is frustrating. Because I'm going to say, it just feels like some weird extension of slavery, really and truly, right? I mean, yes, good coaching is essential, but coaching only takes programs at the university level so far. You need solid players to execute on the court, on the field. And I think in a similar way, the growing level of power and independence we're seeing at the professional levels with players is concerning to the NCAA. Like, I think they're watching that. And the fact that a guy like Rich Paul, who's this power broker, this guy with no college degree, who was instrumental in outfoxing the Fox and taking money out of their pockets, and that fucks with them. And him not having a college degree was their only path to attack him, or guys like him. What else could they say reasonably and stand on as a point of attack? They can't say he doesn't know what he's doing. The guy has a tall roster of great athletes. They can't say he's cheating his clients. He hasn't been accused of that. Some of his guys are all-stars. So what other path do they have to discredit this guy or attack him and people like him? They went after low-hanging fruit, and it's really a pussy move. And the thing that's a little bit bothersome is the level of arrogance that the NCAA has. Like, it's almost a level of arrogance and naivete similar to Blockbuster Video and like some of these car rental companies, where not being flexible with their business models creates an environment for another competitor to at some point undercut them, which is what Rich Paul did. And that's not to say that there are people out there at various levels in the collegiate world that genuinely care about student athletes, because I think there are plenty of people that do. There are educators and coaches and faculty and whatnot. But if you look at the collegiate cluster, everybody is in it to make a buck, and the student athlete is low on that financial hierarchy. Part of the NCAA's MO has been to milk the labor of athletes under the guise that they're getting adequate compensation in the form of room and board and tuition and health and food and all that. It's a good deal for some. It's an okay deal for some. It's a horrible deal for others, because the amount of money they generate by far surpasses the dollar amounts of the room and board and the tuition, and it's just not equitable. Zion Williamson and RJ Barrett, or RJ, I think his name is RJ Barrett, and a lot of these other guys, they're getting, this was not a good deal for them with that business model. And the players know that. And I think that is why there are a lot of illegal deals and things happening through back channels, right? Like, look at what happened with Louisville basketball. And who else was it? Back channel transactions happening with the University of Arizona and their basketball team, and a ton of other transactions a lot of us have no idea that have happened or are currently happening, right? So here's what I think. I think what is equitable is that the athletes get compensation relative to the kind of, I guess, the caliber of athlete they are, factored in what level of program they're in. So again, using like guys like Zion Williamson and RJ Barrett as an example, where people are tuning in to watch them, where they're selling jerseys, those guys should have got a cut from the money that Duke University and the NCAA were raking in. Why not? Nobody was watching Duke to watch Mike Krzyzewski, their coach, on the sidelines. They're watching those guys. Those guys were must-see TV. Mike Krzyzewski isn't must-see TV. Nick Saban and Dabo Swinney, I'm totally ruining his name, Dabo Swinney, whatever, the Clemson coach. Nobody's watching the games to see those guys. So why is it okay for the coaches to have endorsement deals with apparel companies on top of their salary with the universities? And there's a cap on what the athletes can earn, right? There's a cap on the income these guys can pull in. Why not make it more of a revenue sharing model to give these guys more incentive, maybe to stay in college a little bit longer? These kids come from poor areas. Why deny them? How do you, if you're a coach, how do you rake in millions of dollars with a good conscience when you know your athletes come from poor and sometimes deprived neighborhoods? Yet you're working them to the bone on the courts and on the field. How do you do that? So, in the final analysis, I'm not sure there will be a course correction by the NCAA for, a better student-athlete compensation. There will never be a shortage of young men and women headed into the NCAA system as athletes. I don't know. I think, and I kind of hope multinational corporations get a little bit more creative, as New Balance did, to give these young people an opportunity to earn some money. And I really don't want to hear the argument, well, they'll blow it. Well, maybe, but who's to say you can't put that money in a trust or some kind of, some kind of escrow account where their earnings could be preserved. Who says you can't do that? I'm happy for those guys. I'm happy for guys like Brandon Jennings that skipped college, went to Italy for a year, made a nice 7-figure salary, came back stateside and played several, maybe upwards of around 10 seasons in the NBA. Good for him. What kind of job is he going to get coming out of college making that kind of money? Unless he's robbing people on Wall Street, like all the bankers are. I like the idea of young people getting away from home and growing up in college and learning structure, developing as a human being. I don't like the idea of young people being exploited. So I think we need to address this notion of agents having a college degree as a qualifying factor. I think that's just horseshit. I think it was a very weak move played by the NCAA. Again, considering all of the, you can pick an industry. Holding a degree is not going to hold somebody to good conduct or ethics. I don't know. Maybe you think differently. So anyway, that's it. That's what I got for you. I'll give the same spiel. Pardon my voice. I feel like my voice is just going out. But again, the podcast is on all platforms. Well, mostly platforms. It's on iTunes, Spotify, TuneIn, Stitcher, YouTube. If you want to follow on Twitter, the handle is Misconnected, letter P, that's Misconnected P. Instagram is on the Misconnected Podcast. Just search by that. And now I'm on Facebook, although I really don't like being on Facebook. That's just a story, another story in itself. Just search under Misconnected. So that's it.